woman humiliated in luxury store. But everyone is shocked when her true identity is revealed. It was a sunny morning in Velmor, and the neighborhood, one of the city's most sophisticated, buzzed with life and exclusivity. The streets were impeccably clean, lined with luxury boutiques, trendy cafés, and art galleries that reflected the gleam of the glass and steel buildings towering above. It was a place exuding elegance and power, where every detail seemed crafted to impress. Carla Mendes walked these streets with a steady stride and a presence that drew attention. With a straight posture and a serene expression, she seemed oblivious to the curious looks around her. Carla was an elegant and discreet woman, carrying a strength reflected in each movement. She wore an impeccable deep blue dress, perfectly tailored to her frame, high heels that matched her style, and a minimalist leather bag of the highest quality. She carried with her an aura of silent self-confidence, as if each step affirmed her right to be there. But, to some, that very confidence was hard to accept. Carla subtly noticed how certain looks followed her with suspicion as she passed, as if her mere presence raised eyebrows. Deep down, she knew part of those looks came because of her skin color. Carla, a powerful black woman, walked with elegance and composure, but for many, her presence in this exclusive environment seemed out of place. She approached the facade of one of the city's most renowned designer stores, a boutique known for offering the most exclusive high-fashion items. The store boasted a grand entrance with massive glass doors and a brightly lit interior, inviting customers to come in and admire the luxury it had to offer. Outside, Carla took a deep breath and straightened her shoulders before entering. She knew that certain expectations had to be met to be well received there, but she believed her calm demeanor and understated manner would be enough for a respectful experience. Upon crossing the door, Carla was immediately enveloped by the subtle fragrance filling the space, a blend of woodsy and floral scents carefully chosen to evoke exclusivity. The floor was pristine white marble, polished to perfection, reflecting the glow of the showcases displaying handbags, clothing, and jewelry that cost the equivalent of several months' salary for many. Silence filled the air, broken only by the soft background classical music and the occasional low-toned whisper between the few customers and staff. Carla walked slowly through the showroom, observing the products carefully and analyzing each detail, as she did on every one of her luxury store visits. However, as she advanced, she noticed something different. The staff seemed hesitant, and some watched her with a curiosity mingled with something deeper, a barely concealed disdain. It was the type of look she knew well, the one that silently said she wasn't quite the kind of person they expected to see there. It was subtle but cut deep. Carla could see how the glances shifted quickly over her, as if she were somehow out of place, misaligned with her surroundings. She knew that many weren't used to seeing a black woman in such an exclusive environment, and this caused an unmistakable discomfort. A few meters away, one of the sales assistants, a young woman named Camila, watched Carla with an expression of thinly veiled disdain. Camila was ambitious and always on the lookout for customers who showed obvious signs of wealth. Those who came dressed in exaggeratedly luxurious fashion, sparkling jewelry, and extravagant accessories that left no doubt about their financial status. Carla, with her quiet elegance and serene composure, didn't fit that stereotype. Camila followed each of Carla's movements with suspicion, studying the customer with a look that combined curiosity and judgment. Inwardly, she thought that Carla was likely only there to take a look and would soon leave without purchasing anything. Carla approached a display case showcasing some of the store's most exclusive jewelry, fine pieces with diamonds and emeralds perfectly cut to gleam under the carefully positioned lights. She observed each detail, analyzing the craftsmanship and unique design that made these pieces so valuable. But as she examined the jewelry, she noticed Camila's persistent gaze, along with the discreet glances and smiles exchanged among other staff members. The feeling of being watched with suspicion was uncomfortable, but Carla remained impassive, determined not to let the cold reception unsettle her. Determined, Carla approached Camila and, with a gentle smile, asked to see one of the pieces in the display. Her request, however, seemed to catch Camila by surprise. The assistant hesitated, her eyes darting from Carla to the jewelry, as if deciding whether it was worth assisting this customer. After a moment of awkward silence, she replied politely but with a subtly condescending tone. "Of course, ma'am. But these pieces are still exclusive. We have other, more affordable options right over here." She gestured toward a section of the store where the items were of lesser value. Carla noticed the implication in the assistant's tone and took a deep breath before responding, keeping a firm smile on her face. "I'd prefer to see those, if possible," she answered calmly but with a tone that made it clear she wouldn't yield to being underestimated. Reluctantly, Camila nodded and stepped away to retrieve the requested item. While waiting, Carla looked around, noticing other staff members watching her with curious and distrustful expressions. She could feel the judgment in each glance, and this made her reflect on how some things never seemed to change even as time marched forward. It was evident that, to many there, she was still seen as someone out of place. When Camila finally returned with the piece, Carla received it carefully, admiring its brilliance and beauty. She maintained her composure and self-control, determined to continue her experience in the store without showing the discomfort she felt. But within her, a mixture of frustration and sadness began to brew, a bitter feeling she knew all too well and that, on that morning, seemed more present than ever. As Carla continued to admire the jewelry in her hands, Camila stayed close by, arms crossed, observing her every move as if on guard for any sign of trouble. Carla could sense the sales assistant's nearly watchful presence, but she kept a calm expression, examining each angle of the piece. The diamond's brilliance was breathtaking, reflecting the overhead lights to create a multicolored sparkle. Carla knew how to recognize its worth. She understood what made an exclusive piece and appreciated the delicate care required to create something so beautiful. After a while, she looked up and said to Camila, "This piece is truly wonderful. The design is captivating. I'd like to see other pieces from this collection, please." Carla's request seemed to irritate the assistant, who responded with a forced smile. It wasn't common for a customer, especially a woman who, in Camila's eyes, didn't look able to afford it, to ask to view multiple exclusive pieces. The assistant took a deep breath, hesitating for a moment before motioning for Carla to follow her to another display case where even more sophisticated pieces were on display. Their walk to the display was slow, almost as if Camila were deliberately prolonging it, and Carla followed at a calm pace, observing every detail around her. She noticed how other employees glanced at her discreetly as she passed by, some attempting to hide their discomfort, while others whispered among themselves. Though Carla kept her composure, she felt every look, each subtle gesture that exposed how unusual her presence felt to them. It was as if her mere existence in that environment was somehow provocative. Upon reaching the second display, Camila began showing Carla some of the jewelry, her hands moving quickly and efficiently, almost as if she wanted the interaction to end as soon as possible. Carla observed each piece carefully, but noticed that Camila avoided mentioning prices directly, as if she wanted to spare the embarrassment of stating amounts that, in her mind, would be out of Carla's reach. "Here we have a piece that's highly exclusive," Camila said, her tone dripping with thinly disguised disdain. "Only clients with a very refined taste are interested in it." Carla, perfectly understanding the implication, smiled discreetly. "Interesting," she replied, her tone showing indifference to the assistant's prejudice. "I'd also like to know more about the story behind this collection. Do you have any information on the designer?" Camila hesitated, seemingly caught off guard by the question. She mumbled something about the designer's renown, though without much enthusiasm, and soon turned her attention to other clients as if seeking an excuse to end the conversation. With each evasive answer Camila gave, Carla became more aware of the staff's reluctance to attend to her properly. The store might have looked pristine and luxurious, but the atmosphere now seemed heavy with prejudice and veiled rejection, as if wrapped in a cold, impenetrable layer. As Camila continued speaking almost mechanically, Carla paused and looked at the young assistant directly, maintaining a steady and serene gaze. This unsettled Camila, who abruptly stopped speaking, unnerved by the intensity in Carla's eyes. In that moment, Carla began to wonder how far this interaction would go before something more explicit was said. "I'd like you to show me more pieces from this line," Carla insisted, her tone polite but with a firmness that left no room for dismissal. Camila sighed, clearly annoyed, but nodded and retrieved another piece from the display. However, before handing it over, she looked around to see if any more important clients needed attention. Once she saw that everyone else was occupied, she finally gave the piece to Carla. As Carla took the jewelry, Camila, in a slightly condescending tone, commented, "You know, ma'am, these types of pieces are generally more appreciated by those who truly understand fashion and exclusivity. I don't know if you understand what I mean." Carla remained silent for a moment, pondering the assistant's remark. Camila seemed confident that she had drawn a clear line between herself and the client, leaving no doubt that she thought Carla undeserving of the pieces she was admiring. But instead of letting the annoyance get to her, Carla decided she wouldn't give the assistant the satisfaction of seeing her rattled. "I understand perfectly, Camila," Carla replied, maintaining her calm. "I highly value the craftsmanship behind these pieces. In fact, I always support designers who are able to transform noble materials into works of art." Camila was taken aback by Carla's eloquent response. For the first time, she seemed to question who this woman might actually be. But the doubt didn't last long, as she quickly resumed her role as a wary assistant, appearing to believe that if she remained indifferent enough, Carla would lose interest and leave without causing further disruption. As she continued examining the jewelry, Carla reflected on the situation with silent bitterness. The experience in this luxury store wasn't exactly new for her. As a successful black businesswoman, Carla had faced glances of disdain and prejudice in many other places. Every environment, no matter how refined, bore the weight of the expectations and biases held by those working there. However, this situation touched her in a particular way, perhaps because she had spent her life fighting against these stereotypes. She knew her worth, what she had built, and how she had every right to be there just as much as any other client. Carla realized she had become lost in her own thoughts and turned her attention back to the jewelry in her hands. She was determined to complete her visit to the store, and even if the reception remained cold, she wouldn't leave until she had seen everything she wanted. "Camila, could you please show me the piece there, in the center of the display?" Carla requested, keeping her respectful and polite tone, but with a firmness that made her determination clear. Camila sighed once again as if the situation were a burden for her, and took the piece, handing it to Carla abruptly. As she did so, the assistant muttered something under her breath, perhaps hoping Carla wouldn't hear, but the quiet murmur made her displeasure clear. Carla chose to ignore the comment, but part of her wondered how far Camila's arrogance and prejudice would go. As Carla admired the new jewelry piece, a couple entered the store. Instantly, Camila pulled away as if she'd found an excuse to escape from serving Carla. The young assistant seemed eager to give the new couple her full attention, leaving Carla with the piece in her hands without the courtesy of notifying her. Carla stayed in place, watching as Camila greeted the couple with a genuine smile and a friendly manner. She enthusiastically welcomed them and invited them to view the store's most exclusive pieces. The difference in treatment was blatant, and Carla watched the scene with a mix of sadness and frustration. It was evident that, to Camila, certain clients deserved respect and attention, while others, like her, could be disregarded. Carla closed her eyes briefly, seeking some calm. The experience was becoming exhausting, and she started to question whether it was worth continuing. But when she opened her eyes, her determination had returned. She was there to show that she wouldn't be disregarded, that her worth didn't depend on immediate recognition but on her own conviction and dignity. Carla watched closely as Camila, the young sales assistant, moved away to attend to the couple who had just entered the store. The change in the assistant's demeanor was obvious. The smile she offered the new customers was genuine, her words welcoming, and her posture completely different from the cold indifference she had shown Carla. It was as if Camila were greeting old friends, while Carla, an equally interested customer, was treated as an inconvenience. The situation was frustrating, but Carla remained serene. She knew that, in environments like this, being underestimated and ignored was almost routine, especially for someone like her who challenged the expectations of those who presumed who deserved attention and respect. Being in that luxurious space, surrounded by people who judged her without knowing her, brought back memories of other times when she had faced the same prejudice. It was a painful feeling, yet one that strengthened her resolve. It was as if every disdainful look fueled her determination to move forward and prove her worth went beyond what they could see. While the couple admired the jewelry, Carla went over to another display and observed the pieces showcased there. She knew her time was valuable and that she could easily leave, but something inside told her she should stay. It wasn't a matter of resilience, but of dignity. She deserved to be there as much as any other customer, and leaving would feel like giving in to the prejudice, validating the limited view these people had of her. In the distance, she noticed that Camila and another employee were now engaged in conversation with the couple, showcasing pieces, discussing the designer's details, and proudly presenting the value of each item. Carla could hear bits of the conversation, and it was evident that the employees were eager to meet the new client's needs, providing a luxurious, personalized experience. The smiles, the attention, the dedication were reserved for those who fit a certain image. An image that, to them, Carla did not represent. Taking a deep breath, Carla decided it was time to try a different approach. With steady steps, she walked over to the counter where Camila was standing and patiently waited for the assistant to finish her conversation with the couple. The assistant seemed irritated to notice her presence again but kept her composure, meeting her with that now familiar look of disdain. "I need assistance learning more about the pieces in the display," Carla said firmly, without hesitation. Camila, still wearing a forced smile, replied almost automatically, "Of course, ma'am. But, as I mentioned, we do have more accessible options in other sections of the store. Perhaps something more suited to your profile." The implication was raw and unmistakable. It was as if Camila felt it her duty to protect the display pieces from someone who, in her biased view, couldn't possibly afford something so valuable. Carla felt a wave of frustration rise in her chest, but she maintained her calm expression. "I'm interested in these specific pieces," she said in a calm but unwavering tone. "I'd like to see the full collection, please." The assistant cast an exasperated look but, before she could respond, a supervisor approached, drawn by the subtle tension that had begun to build between Carla and Camila. The supervisor was a middle-aged woman with a serious demeanor and an expression that conveyed authority. She introduced herself politely but with a certain distance. "Is there a problem, Camila?" the supervisor asked, glancing briefly at Carla, as if assessing whether she was a legitimate customer or a possible nuisance. Carla held her ground and looked at the supervisor, deciding to be direct. "I'm trying to see more pieces from the collection displayed, but I'm sensing a certain resistance from the staff in assisting me appropriately. I would think all customers should be treated with the same level of respect, wouldn't you agree?" The supervisor raised her eyebrows, visibly unsettled by Carla's firmness. She hesitated for a moment but, feeling pressured by Carla's imposing presence, responded with a slight nod. "Yes, ma'am. Of course, all customers deserve the same treatment. Camila will assist you," she stated, giving the assistant a warning look, which caused her to slightly recoil. Reluctantly, Camila resumed the service. She led Carla to another part of the store where more exclusive pieces were displayed. This time, she carefully described each detail, as if fearing her supervisor's watchful gaze. However, Carla could sense the change in attitude was forced. The supervisor was watching closely, and with every sentence from Camila, a tense atmosphere hung in the air. As the service continued, Carla kept analyzing the jewelry, but her mind was occupied with thoughts on what was really happening there. She had invested so much to earn respect in the business world, but in situations like this, it felt as if all that was irrelevant. She wasn't seen as a businesswoman or a successful woman. She was judged solely by the color of her skin and the assumption that, for some reason, she didn't belong there. This realization hit her hard. Carla, who had always faced the challenges of the business world with her head held high, felt the familiar sting of exclusion she had endured countless times. However, she knew leaving without a response wasn't an option. She wanted more than just to look at jewelry. She wanted to be acknowledged as someone who deserved to be there, regardless of appearance or background. Suddenly, as she examined a specific piece, Carla paused and looked directly at Camila, who immediately averted her gaze. An uncomfortable silence fell between them, as if both were aware of what was happening but unwilling to admit it. Carla then decided to break the silence. "Camila, I would like to meet with the store manager, please. I believe he might be able to help me with what I'm looking for." The assistant hesitated, seeming even more uncomfortable. The request surprised her, and she glanced at the supervisor, who also appeared unsure of how to proceed. It wasn't common for someone to ask directly for the manager without a specific reason. But, sensing Carla's determination, Camila nodded, though her expression remained laden with disdain. "Alright, ma'am. I'll check to see if the manager is available," she said, her voice slightly unsteady, before walking away briskly. Carla stayed put, watching the activity around her as she waited for the assistant's return. She took a deep breath, using the moment to calm the thoughts racing through her mind. In situations like these, where prejudice revealed itself so subtly, it was easy to be overtaken by anger, but Carla knew she needed to stay calm. She had faced worse moments before, and this wouldn't be the last. A few minutes later, Camila returned, visibly annoyed. "The manager is busy at the moment, but I'll be available to help you with anything you need," she said, her tone clearly displaying her reluctance. Carla sighed, feeling her frustration rise once more. She knew they were only prolonging the service, hoping that with a bit more disdain and indifference, she would give up. But they wouldn't succeed. "Then I'll wait," Carla responded, determined not to back down. "I'm sure he won't take long." The tension in the store became palpable. Other employees and even some customers started watching Carla, curious and slightly bothered by her insistence. It seemed as though everyone was waiting for her to finally give up and leave. But Carla, fully aware of the impact her presence was causing, held her ground, determined to face the hostile environment to the very end. Time passed and Carla, with a calm and resolute expression, continued to wait patiently for the manager. In an environment where luxury and exclusivity seemed to elevate only a select few, her determination to remain was becoming a matter of principle. She refused to be treated with any less dignity, and her stance made it clear she had no intention of leaving anytime soon. As she waited, Carla felt the intense stares around her. A group of employees spoke quietly, watching her with suspicion, while the couple Camila was assisting remained immersed in selecting their jewelry. Carla allowed herself a deep breath and reflection. Prejudice had always been an obstacle, but over time, she had learned to face it with resilience. Although situations like this wore on her emotionally, she knew that allowing such treatment to continue only contributed to its persistence. After what felt like an eternity, Camila returned. Her expression was tense, and the irritation in her gaze was unmistakable. She approached Carla with a posture that seemed reluctant, and her words were cold and curt. "The manager is still occupied. But as I mentioned, I'll be available for whatever assistance you need," Camila said, her tone bordering on sarcasm. Carla suppressed the indignation that threatened to break through her expression. She would maintain her composure, even though the assistant's obvious disdain deeply bothered her. She stepped closer to Camila, maintaining her poise, and spoke in a low but firm enough tone to make it clear she would accept nothing less than what she deserved. "Camila, I believe I was very clear when I asked to see the manager. If he is truly occupied, I can wait a bit longer. But I would appreciate it if you let him know that I am willing to wait." Camila hesitated, visibly unsettled by Carla's persistence. She hadn't expected a customer like Carla, who, in her mind, should have given up from the start, to keep insisting on something that, to her, seemed excessive. The assistant sighed, clearly annoyed, but nodded briefly before heading toward the door leading to the manager's office. Carla watched Camila's every step attentively, noticing the discomfort written all over her face. It was evident that the young assistant felt thrown off by Carla's firmness. The condescending treatment and disdain that usually worked to ward off undesirable customers were proving ineffective. Carla wouldn't back down. She had faced tougher situations, moments where being underestimated or discriminated against was more rule than exception. Here, in this place of luxury and appearances, she would not tolerate being treated as anything less. A few minutes later, the office door opened, and a young man appeared, well-dressed with a somewhat arrogant expression. He was the store manager, and as he noticed Carla, he didn't hide his surprise. He seemed unsettled, as if he couldn't understand why this particular customer had insisted so much on meeting him. By his side, Camila watched him with a look of complicity, as if expecting him to take some action to end the situation. The manager approached Carla with a formal but forced smile. His expression showed he didn't believe the meeting was necessary. "Good afternoon, ma'am. How can I help you?" he asked, without much conviction, maintaining a slightly impersonal posture. Carla noticed the coldness in his words but chose to ignore it, responding with equal firmness. "Good afternoon. I'm interested in the store's exclusive jewelry pieces, but unfortunately, the service I've received thus far hasn't reflected the quality I expected from an establishment like this." The manager cast a quick look at Camila, who lowered her head as though suddenly interested in the floor, then returned his gaze to Carla with a slight smile, trying to soften his tone. "I apologize if there's been any misunderstanding, ma'am. Certainly, the store always strives for the best service. Camila is one of our best assistants, and I'm sure there was no intention to disrespect." Carla raised an eyebrow, surprised by how easily he attempted to downplay the situation. The misunderstanding was obvious, but Carla knew he was referring to more than just a lapse in service. "I understand, but I must say the treatment I received has fallen far short. It's unusual for a customer to need to repeatedly request to see specific pieces or to speak with the manager about service issues," Carla replied, maintaining her tone. She knew her request was fair, and she wouldn't hesitate to address the situation. The manager nodded, visibly uncomfortable, and quickly tried to shift the focus. Of course. Please allow me to offer you a suitable experience. I'll be personally available to show you the pieces you wish to see." The manager's tone was conciliatory, but Carla sensed his offer of help was more an attempt to avoid further embarrassment than a genuine demonstration of respect. The attitude of the staff, the looks, and the indifference throughout her experience revealed something much deeper. Carla took a deep breath and decided that, in this moment, the situation required more than a simple change of attendant. "I appreciate the offer," Carla responded, "but I believe it's important to recognize that all customers should receive the same treatment from the moment they enter the store. I am a customer like any other, and I deserve to be treated with the same dignity. This isn't just about seeing the pieces, it's about respect, something that should be afforded to everyone without distinction." The firmness in her voice made the manager swallow hard. It was clear that Carla wasn't willing to let this moment pass unaddressed. He smiled again, but this time he couldn't hide his discomfort. Camila, standing nearby, watched the conversation with a tense expression, as if fearing what Carla might say next. "Certainly, ma'am," the manager replied, trying to appear calm. "I'm sure everyone here understands the importance of treating every customer with the appropriate respect." There was something in his tone that made it sound as though his words came not from conviction but from a desire to end the matter as quickly as possible. Carla was no stranger to this. She knew very well when someone was only trying to solve a problem at the surface level without truly absorbing the criticism. Carla held her gaze on the manager for a few moments, allowing him to feel the weight of the silence. She wanted him to understand the gravity of her words and her presence there. She was determined to show that she wouldn't accept being ignored or disrespected. After a moment, she took a deep breath and responded, this time with a calmer but still assertive tone. "I hope everyone in the store can reflect on this. This isn't just about business, it's about humanity. Everyone deserves respect, regardless of their appearance or anything else. That's a lesson I value greatly." The manager nodded, still uncomfortable. He knew the situation had gotten out of hand and that Carla, by standing her ground, had exposed something he and his team preferred to ignore. Feeling the pressure of each word, he murmured an apology once more, promising to improve the store's service. Camila, beside him, couldn't hide her embarrassed expression. She seemed to understand she had made a mistake, but her pride held her back from admitting it aloud. Carla kept her steady gaze on both of them, feeling that, finally, her presence there had made some difference. After the direct confrontation with the manager and the sales assistant, Carla took a few steps away from the display case and stopped near one of the columns decorating the store's interior. She needed a moment to herself, a space to breathe and organize the thoughts swirling in her mind. The shock of being treated with disdain, the attempt to mask discrimination, the empty apologies, all of it led her to a state of deep introspection. Surrounded by glittering jewelry and the store's distinctive fragrance, she felt isolated in a world that seemed to value her only to the extent that she met the expectations of a superficial status. Carla closed her eyes for a moment, allowing a series of memories to flood her mind. She recalled how her journey as a black woman in an environment where success and acceptance were rarely offered fairly had been marked by challenges. From the beginning of her career, the road had been tough. She frequently faced questions about her ability, her intentions, and even her worth. She had to constantly prove that she deserved to be where she was, an unending effort not required of others in similar positions. The first time Carla encountered prejudice was when she was very young, during her first job at a law firm. The experience left a lasting impact. She was a dedicated and competent employee, but whenever she made a mistake, no matter how minor, it seemed to carry more weight than her colleagues' errors. Her mistakes were treated with greater severity, as though there was an invisible expectation that she couldn't excel or learn from her slip-ups. Carla remembered one of the partners at that firm, a man with the power to decide who stayed and who had to go. One day, after a small error that she quickly corrected herself, he looked at her with an expression of distrust that communicated more than words. He didn't need to verbalize his thoughts. His expression, loaded with judgment and disbelief, made her understand that, to him, she would always be less. Over the years, Carla learned to face these situations head-on. She knew her worth extended beyond what others could see or understand. She built a solid career, thrived, and earned respect, not only for being a successful professional but for her unwavering determination to never give up despite everything she faced. Still, she knew that at any moment, she could encounter glances and attitudes that would make her feel like that first day on the job, underestimated, undervalued, judged. Carla opened her eyes and gazed at the jewelry in the display next to her, reflecting on how those pieces, crafted as symbols of status and power, didn't truly represent what she had achieved. The real jewel she carried was her strength, her ability to continue despite adversity, her pride in who she was. There, in a store so focused on projecting exclusivity, she embodied a form of exclusivity that money couldn't buy, the power to maintain her dignity even when others tried to take it away. In that moment of reflection, Carla felt a slight wave of sadness. It was exhausting. It was as though the world didn't want her to feel comfortable anywhere. She was tired of always having to show resilience and stay calm while facing a silent, constant battle. Sometimes, she wished she could simply exist, without needing to defy expectations, without being forced to bear the burden of prejudice and discrimination. Yet, at the same time, she knew her presence there, her determination to stay strong, was her way of telling the world she existed, that she deserved to be there just as much as anyone else. While Carla remained lost in her thoughts, one of the store's clients, an elderly gentleman who had arrived a few minutes earlier, noticed her expression and approached her with a gentle smile. He seemed to understand that she was deep in thought and respected her space but offered a brief comment. "Beautiful jewelry, isn't it?" he said, in a calm and respectful tone. Carla looked at him, slightly surprised by his unexpected kindness, and nodded with a small smile. "Yes, they are beautiful," she replied, allowing a hint of her thoughts to show. "But sometimes the most valuable things are invisible, don't you think?" The man nodded, and they remained silent for a moment, sharing a rare moment of mutual understanding. It was a pause that allowed Carla to regain some of her serenity and feel a bit less isolated in that judgmental environment. She thanked the man with a slight nod and returned her gaze to the display, now feeling renewed strength. At some point, as she focused on reorganizing her feelings and reflecting on her next steps, Carla noticed Camila watching her from a distance. The young sales assistant seemed unsettled, as if she was beginning to realize that the situation had slipped out of her control. Camila's expression, once confident and full of superiority, now displayed a mix of nervousness and regret. Perhaps she was beginning to understand that her attitude and the assumptions she had made about Carla had been inappropriate. Carla pondered the possibility that maybe the situation was not just a lesson for herself, but also for Camila and for everyone who had witnessed what had happened. It was a chance for them to confront their own prejudices and learn to see people beyond appearances. Thinking about this, Carla felt a sense of peace growing within her, as if, despite all the discomfort, this experience was revealing something important. Even so, Carla knew there was still more to be done. Her presence there was a symbol of resistance, but she hoped for a real transformation in that place. She wanted Camila, the manager, and all the employees to understand that a person's worth couldn't be determined by appearance, assumptions, or apparent status. As these thoughts settled in her mind, Carla took a deep breath and decided to wait a bit longer. She wanted to see how the situation would unfold. She surveyed the environment around her, feeling stronger and calmer, and smiled to herself, remembering that each of the hardships she had faced over the years had helped shape her into who she was, a resilient woman who, despite all the adversities, had earned a place of respect. There, in that luxurious space, Carla reaffirmed her own worth. She knew that soon enough, there would be a shift. It was inevitable, for she was determined not to allow prejudice and disrespect to go unnoticed. Her presence there was a message, and she was committed to ensuring that message would be understood. After those moments of reflection and reconnecting with her inner strength, Carla felt renewed. Every memory, every experience of discrimination and underestimation that resurfaced in her mind only reinforced her resolve to stand firm against the indifferent and prejudiced attitude of the staff. It was time to act, to remind everyone in that store that no one had the right to look down on her. Carla took a deep breath and adjusted her posture. Her decision was made. She walked back to the area where Camila was speaking quietly with another employee, probably exchanging impressions about Carla. Their tone was malicious, and Carla couldn't help but notice their glances, watching her movements as if analyzing and judging each step. As she approached them, she noticed Camila trying to appear uninterested, but a slight tremor in the assistant's hands betrayed her nervousness. Carla, however, remained calm, and her steady steps on the marble floor created a ripple of silence around her, as if everyone suddenly became aware of her presence. "Camila, excuse me for interrupting," Carla said in a calm yet unmistakably assertive tone. "It seems there have been a series of misunderstandings since I entered this store. I'd like to clear that up." Camila straightened up, trying to keep a neutral expression, but the tension in her face was visible. The young woman no longer had that air of superiority she displayed initially. There was something about Carla, an intense determination and an undeniable presence, that disarmed her. Yet, Camila wasn't ready to fully back down. In a tone that tried to sound confident but revealed her unease, she replied, "Ma'am, as I mentioned before, I'm here to assist you, but—" "Yes, I understand that, Camila," Carla interrupted, not allowing her to finish. "But I also noticed, very clearly, that the service I received was different from what other customers had been given." Camila opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Carla continued, her voice still calm but with a firmness that left no room for argument. "You see, I'm not interested in empty apologies," Carla said, crossing her arms, assuming a naturally authoritative stance. "I want to be treated with the same respect and dignity you extend to any customer who walks through that door." Carla's words hung in the air like a declaration, and the silence around them deepened. A few customers glanced over discreetly, curious about the serious tone that had taken over the store. Camila looked away, clearly uncomfortable, as though seeking an escape from Carla's commanding presence. But Carla wasn't going to offer her that option. "When I arrived, I asked to see a few pieces and was directed to a specific section, as if I lacked something to have the right to be here," Carla continued, looking directly into Camila's eyes. "Since then, I've felt that the service I've received has been condescending, as though I didn't deserve attention or respect." Carla's frankness left Camila speechless. Around them, a few employees who had been watching with curiosity now looked uneasy. Carla spoke eloquently, making it clear she was not someone to be underestimated. Each word she uttered was an affirmation of her worth, her experience, and her resilience in the face of adversity. The message was clear: Carla would not tolerate being treated with anything less than the respect she deserved. Visibly embarrassed, Camila tried to regain her composure, but she couldn't hide her discomfort. I didn't mean," she began, but quickly stopped, unsure how to continue. Carla leaned in slightly, maintaining her steady gaze, and made a small gesture with her hand, prompting Camila to go on. The pressure of the situation was clear, and Camila took a deep breath before attempting a more sincere response. "I apologize if my service was inadequate, ma'am," she said in a much softer tone. "Sometimes, I suppose, I shouldn't have made quick judgments." Carla gave a faint smile. It was a smile of understanding but also one of firmness, as if granting Camila a chance to learn, though not entirely forgiving her. "Life is made of choices, Camila," Carla said with a tone that mixed compassion and authority. "And one of the most important choices we can make is to treat others with respect, regardless of any superficial judgment." As these words echoed in the room, the store manager, who had been observing from a distance, finally stepped forward. His expression was serious, with a hint of concern. He understood that the situation was far from resolved and that any misstep could worsen what was already a clearly delicate issue. "Ma'am, I apologize once again," said the manager, bowing slightly, trying to mitigate the embarrassment of the moment. "I believe Camila understands the importance of what's been said here. On behalf of the store, we assure you that you will not be disrespected again." Carla crossed her arms and studied the manager briefly, keeping her calm. She knew that apologies were often offered just to close a problem, not as a true commitment to changing behavior. However, she wanted to believe that something could be different. She knew that, as difficult as it was, people were capable of learning from their mistakes, if they were willing. "I hope this isn't just lip service," Carla replied, her gaze serious. "When I say that respect is essential, it's because I've been through situations where it was denied to me. I understand its importance. And I believe, for you as well, it should be a non-negotiable principle." The manager nodded, visibly uncomfortable with the weight of Carla's words. He knew she was right. The store, a place proud of its exclusivity, had failed to treat a customer with proper respect. It wasn't just a matter of customer service policy, but of basic principles that should be part of each employee's character. Camila, standing next to the manager, seemed embarrassed. Her eyes were fixed on the floor, as if she were avoiding looking at Carla at all costs. The regret began to settle in, and the young woman finally seemed to grasp the gravity of her attitude. The entire experience served as a lesson she wouldn't forget soon. Carla observed the two of them for a moment before taking a deep breath and relaxing her stance. She felt that her message had been delivered, and now the weight of the discomfort lay on those responsible for the situation. It was time to end this confrontation. She didn't need anything more to reaffirm her worth, as her stance had made it clear she would accept nothing less than respect and fairness. "I believe I've said what needed to be said," Carla concluded in a calm and resolute tone. "I hope everyone can reflect on what happened here today. Not just for me, but for anyone who walks through this door expecting to be treated with dignity." She turned to leave, feeling light and serene. Every step toward the store's exit seemed to affirm her right to be there, to belong anywhere she wished. The looks that once held judgment now carried respect, and even admiration, as if they finally recognized Carla's undeniable worth. As she reached the door, Carla paused briefly and cast one last look at the manager and Camila. The manager smiled, trying to appear sympathetic, while Camila, still wearing an expression of regret, couldn't hold her gaze. And with that, Carla left the store, but not without leaving a silent reminder: respect is an essential virtue, and anyone seeking to understand the true value of exclusivity must know that real luxury begins with the way we treat one another. When Carla left the store, she felt a mix of relief and exhaustion. The confrontation with the staff was necessary, but draining. She knew her stance was important, not only for herself but for all who might be treated similarly. She lifted her face to the sky, letting the fresh air clear her mind. But as she walked away, part of her still lingered in that oppressive environment she had just left. She felt that, as firm as she'd been, there was still a restlessness. Carla wanted to believe that those who witnessed the situation had truly learned something. Inside the store, a tense atmosphere still lingered. The manager, employees, and even some customers who had observed the exchange with Carla remained silent. The air was thick with a collective discomfort, as though each person knew something profound had been exposed, something many preferred to ignore. Camila, who had always taken pride in her work, now stared at the floor, unable to meet the gaze of her colleagues. Her mind was in turmoil. The young sales assistant knew Carla was right, that her actions had been driven by prejudices she had never had the courage to confront. Slowly, Camila leaned against a counter and took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. She felt a mix of regret and shame, a weight that made her question her own values. Since she had started working in that store, Camila had been trained to judge customers based on appearances. It was part of a service strategy that prioritized those who looked affluent, and often, this meant ignoring or even underestimating those who didn't fit that superficial mold. But something about Carla's presence, the serenity and strength with which she handled the situation, had shaken her deeply. Carla hadn't been just a demanding customer. She represented everything Camila hadn't expected, dignity and pride in who she was, without any need to prove herself to anyone. Carla's posture made it clear that respect was a right, not a privilege, and that underestimating her had been a grave mistake. On an impulse, Camila turned to the manager and, with a tone that combined humility and sincerity, said, "I think I made a big mistake today." The manager looked at her, surprised, but kept his serious expression. He had observed the entire situation and, although he was responsible for the store, he knew he carried his share of the blame. After all, he had always allowed employees to treat certain customers with less consideration, as long as there were no explicit complaints. "Camila, we can all learn from our mistakes," he replied, hesitantly, as though still processing the impact of the situation. "But we need to recognize that some lessons are harder than others." Camila nodded, knowing that the lesson of that day would be one of the hardest she had ever faced. It was as if her entire worldview had been confronted in a brutal and direct way. Every word Carla had spoken echoed in her mind, reminding her that respect and dignity should come before any superficial judgment. The young assistant remained silent for a few moments, reflecting on what she could do to make amends. She knew that apologizing was only the first step. She needed to change deeply. She needed to learn to see people beyond what they wore or appeared to be. As these reflections passed through her mind, Camila noticed the attentive looks of a few colleagues. They watched her with curiosity, as if also waiting for a reaction, as if they too expected her to have something more to say. Camila looked around and saw the faces of the staff. Many seemed tense, while others were still trying to understand what had happened. It was as if the experience with Carla had revealed something everyone there had been avoiding, the silent prejudice that permeated each gesture, each look, each choice in customer service. Some employees looked uncomfortable, others wondering if they too had made similar mistakes. Inspired by Carla's words, Camila felt that it was time to take responsibility, to face her own mistakes and seek true change. With determination, she turned to her colleagues and, with a voice trembling but resolute, said, "We all need to rethink what happened today. I was prejudiced. I judged someone without knowing her worth, without even giving her a chance. And that's not something I want to keep doing." The silence in the store was absolute. No one dared to interrupt Camila, and some employees began to lower their heads, as if her words stirred a sense of guilt they too carried. The manager, despite his leadership role, couldn't hide the reflective expression that now dominated his face. It was clear that something had changed, that Carla's presence had triggered a process of transformation in those who had witnessed her confrontation. As Camila stood there, absorbing the weight of her words, she knew that true change would require time and effort. But at the same time, she felt lighter, as if she had taken the first step toward becoming a better person. Carla had left a profound mark, a reminder that respect was a non-negotiable principle and that everyone deserved to be treated with dignity, regardless of appearances. Some of the customers who had witnessed the scene began to disperse, but the impact of what they had seen was evident in their expressions. For many, it had been a reminder of the dangers of prejudice, a demonstration of the power of a voice that refuses to be silenced. Carla had left the store, but her presence was still felt as a transformative force, a message that echoed in every corner of that luxurious space. As evening approached and activity in the store dwindled, Camila remained at her station, reflecting on the choices she had made throughout the day. She knew that to truly redeem herself, she would have to work to transform her attitudes and overcome the silent prejudices she carried. She looked toward the door through which Carla had left and felt grateful for having encountered someone so strong and determined, someone who had inspired her to look within and question who she truly was. Finally, with a mixture of sadness and hope, Camila stepped away from the counter, feeling more aware and ready to act differently. She knew the journey would be long, but the memory of Carla, with her firm presence and confident gaze, would give her the strength to face her own prejudices and build a new way of seeing the world. As Carla left the store, she felt her heart finally calm. The confrontation, though necessary, had been exhausting. She walked slowly through the Velmor neighborhood, trying to regain her serenity. In her mind, the words exchanged, the looks, the disdain, and the remorse of the staff remained fresh, a vivid, raw memory. But to Carla, that moment represented yet another silent victory in her long journey of resilience. As she passed by a few shops, she heard hurried footsteps behind her. Turning, she saw a familiar face, Mr. Ramos, one of the senior executives from the chain of stores where she had just endured that unpleasant experience. A middle-aged man with a friendly expression and always cordial demeanor, he approached her with a look of surprised enthusiasm. "Dr. Carla Mendes," exclaimed Mr. Ramos, visibly delighted. "What a surprise to find you here." Carla gave a calm smile, but her gaze held a contained satisfaction. She knew that Mr. Ramos's presence would bring an immediate change to the situation she had left behind. The executive, who had always treated her with respect, had been one of the biggest supporters of her investments and a collaborator in several of her successful ventures. Upon hearing Carla's name, a few pedestrians also turned to look in her direction, curious about who this woman might be, someone whose presence seemed to carry a weight and significance that few understood. Mr. Ramos, always perceptive, quickly noticed that Carla's demeanor was serious and distant, unlike the calm he usually saw in her. Sensing the change in her expression, he asked, "Is everything all right, Dr. Mendes? You seem reflective." Carla took a deep breath and nodded, but her gaze still conveyed the intensity of her recent experiences. Not wanting to go into detail at that moment, she simply replied, "I had an unpleasant experience in one of the stores in your network. But for my own peace of mind, I've taken the necessary steps to address it." Mr. Ramos raised his eyebrows, visibly intrigued by her statement. He knew Carla to be a demanding but exceptionally fair woman, and it was rare for her to be disturbed by trivial situations. He understood that if something had upset her, it must have been serious. With a respectful gesture, he invited her to walk back to the store, where he intended to get to the bottom of the situation. Understanding his intent, Carla agreed. Upon their return to the store, Carla's presence alongside Mr. Ramos made an immediate impact. The employees, particularly Camila and the manager, widened their eyes in shock. They hadn't expected her to return, much less accompanied by one of the chain's most senior executives. Murmurs spread, and tension filled the room once again, but this time, an undeniable apprehension was visible on the faces of the employees. With his confident, firm posture, Mr. Ramos addressed the store manager, who was clearly unsettled by the situation. "Good afternoon. I was speaking with Dr. Carla Mendes about her experience here today," said Mr. Ramos, in a calm yet authoritative voice. "I'd like to know how the service went, as something tells me it may not have been up to our standards." The manager tried to maintain his composure, but his nervousness was evident. He hadn't realized that Carla was one of the primary investors in the chain, a woman whose name inspired respect and admiration among those who knew her work and career. With a nervous smile, he began to explain. "Sir, I believe there was a slight misunderstanding. The customer, Dr. Mendes, may have interpreted the service differently than intended. Our staff always strive for respect and dedication." Carla remained silent, but her gaze was fixed on the manager, observing him as he tried to justify himself. She knew his words were merely an attempt to avoid consequences, and that his and Camila's behavior reflected a prejudice that went beyond that single incident. Noticing the manager's hesitation, Mr. Ramos frowned and, in a more serious tone, said, "Dr. Mendes is one of our primary investors. She is a significant figure, not just for our brand, but for the concept of excellence we aim to represent. If the service she received was anything less than perfect, then we are failing in our mission." Mr. Ramos's statement had a profound impact on the employees. Camila, especially, seemed struck. She looked at Carla with a mix of disbelief and regret. Throughout the encounter, she had treated Carla with disdain and disregard, never imagining that this calm, assured woman was, in fact, one of the key figures behind the brand's success. Camila felt a wave of shame and regret wash over her. She thought about how she had so carelessly judged Carla, basing her assessment solely on appearance and the assumption that Carla didn't belong in that space. The reality was now clear, and Camila's prejudiced attitude made her feel small and guilty. Attempting to find the right words, the manager looked at Carla and stammered an apology. "Dr. Mendes, please forgive me. We had no idea of your importance to our network. If we had known—" Carla raised a hand, interrupting him calmly but firmly. She understood that he was trying to justify his actions based on what he now knew about her position. But she wanted him to understand something far more profound. "It's not about knowing who I am," Carla said with a firm voice. "It's about treating everyone with the same respect and consideration. My position here should not matter. Every person who walks through that door deserves fair and dignified service." Silence fell over the room. The employees were in a state of shock and remorse, many lowering their eyes, feeling exposed in their prejudices. Carla knew that her stance was a reminder of the true value of people and the importance of not judging anyone based on appearance or assumptions. After a pause, Mr. Ramos turned to the employees and, in a firm tone, said, "We need to ensure that all customers are treated with dignity. I hope this experience serves as a lesson, so we can prevent situations like this from happening again." Feeling the weight of his words, Camila stepped forward, hesitant. In her expression, there was a mix of shame and a desire for redemption. "Dr. Mendes, I am deeply sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "I should never have acted that way. I now understand how unfair and insensitive I was." Carla looked at her with a blend of understanding and seriousness. She knew that behind Camila's apology lay a painful awareness of her mistake. With a brief but firm smile, Carla replied, "I hope you learn from this experience, Camila. Respect and empathy should always come before any judgment." The young woman nodded, visibly moved. She felt that this moment had changed her, and she promised herself that she would change her attitude moving forward. Carla, for her part, felt at peace, knowing that by taking a stand, she had left a clear and impactful message. As she bid farewell to Mr. Ramos and exited the store, Carla felt a lightness in her heart. She knew that day had been more than a confrontation. It had been a silent victory for respect and human dignity. And once again, Carla reaffirmed her worth, not just as a businesswoman but as a woman who wouldn't yield to prejudice, who, instead, fought for a more just world. After Carla and Mr. Ramos left, the atmosphere in the store was thick with a nearly palpable tension. The employees exchanged discreet glances, and many avoided speaking, as if any word might rekindle the weight of the experience they had all just witnessed. It hadn't been an ordinary incident. Carla's visit had become a kind of mirror that exposed the silent prejudice running through their service and attitudes. Camila, in particular, was deeply affected. She could still feel Carla's gaze, that firm look that conveyed a message so clear and painful. Respect isn't a matter of position or status, it's a non-negotiable right. It was as if every word Carla had spoken continued to echo in her mind, making her increasingly aware of her own mistake. Camila leaned against a counter, letting out a heavy sigh. She knew that what she felt now was a mix of regret and shame, a feeling that made her question not only her actions that day but her entire approach to her work. For a few minutes, she lost herself in her thoughts, trying to understand what had really driven her behavior. Camila had always believed that her role in the store was to provide excellent service and ensure that each experience was as exclusive as possible. But gradually, she realized she had confused exclusivity with selectivity, treating certain clients as more worthy of attention than others. In choosing who did and didn't deserve respect, she had distorted the very meaning of her work. Her colleagues, who had also witnessed everything, began to murmur about what might happen next. Some expressed concerns about possible reprimands or even changes in service practices, while others, like Camila, remained silent, visibly moved by the situation. The experience with Carla had stirred a collective sense of guilt, as if suddenly everyone felt compelled to rethink how they viewed and treated people. Unable to contain her unease, Camila decided to approach the manager, who also seemed lost in thought. He, who had always been seen as a firm leader, now displayed a troubled expression, as though Carla's presence had made him question his own actions. When he noticed Camila approaching, he looked up and sighed. "Manager, I think we need to talk about what happened today," Camila said, her voice soft but filled with sincerity. The manager observed her for a moment before nodding in agreement. He knew that as a leader, it was his duty to guide the team, but he was also aware that he, too, had failed. By allowing prejudiced attitudes to go unchecked, he had contributed to a culture of superficial judgment, and now that weight rested heavily on his shoulders. "I agree, Camila. We all need to reflect on what happened," he replied, with a tone that conveyed both exhaustion and regret. "I think we all failed today, on some level." Camila nodded and stayed by his side, feeling that this was the first time they shared something beyond a professional relationship. In that moment, they shared a silent understanding. They were both, in a way, facing the same lesson, seeking a way to turn regret into learning. At that same moment, other employees gathered around the manager and Camila, forming a small group. One of the colleagues, clearly affected by the situation, spoke softly. "I was indifferent too. I thought she wasn't important, that she couldn't afford the items. And that's not right." The honesty of the comment sparked a wave of empathy among the employees. Camila realized she wasn't the only one carrying silent prejudices, and this made her feel less alone, but at the same time, it increased her responsibility to act differently going forward. The manager, observing the employees now sharing this moment of reflection, recognized an opportunity for change. Carla's visit had been a turning point, a chance for everyone there to reconsider not only their service practices but also the personal values they carried. He stepped forward and, with a voice that exuded both authority and humility, declared, "From today on, let's make a commitment. This commitment is to respect, empathy, and equality. No customer will be more or less important to us because of appearance, assumptions, or superficial judgments. Everyone who walks through that door will be treated with dignity." The employees listened to the manager in silence, but it was clear that, for many, this was a true milestone. Camila felt a wave of relief mixed with determination. She knew that overcoming her own prejudices and becoming a better professional would be a long journey, but she was committed to embracing this change. Inspired by the manager's words, Camila raised her head and, in a voice filled with sincerity, said, "I'm committed to changing too. I want to learn to see each person for who they truly are, not for who I think they might be." Camila's words created a bond among those present, and many nodded in agreement, showing support for her decision. They knew that the process of change would require constant effort and a genuine commitment from each of them, but they were ready to face this challenge. As the group of employees dispersed, each returning to their tasks, Camila felt that something within her had changed profoundly. Her experience with Carla had transformed her in an irreversible way. For the first time, she could see the value in each customer beyond appearances, recognizing that her role was to serve with respect and empathy, free from any prejudice. The days following Carla's visit were different. The store underwent visible changes, and the team received clearer guidance on inclusive service and the importance of treating everyone with dignity. The employees, who had once focused on serving only the important clients, now worked to offer a respectful and welcoming experience to everyone who entered the store. Carla's impact continued to resonate within the store, a constant reminder that true luxury lies in how people are treated. Camila, in particular, transformed her approach to work. She dedicated herself to her role with sincerity, striving to see the best in every customer and treating everyone with the same kindness. She had become more empathetic, more aware of her own biases, and determined to foster a work environment that reflected these values. To her, the experience with Carla was a vivid reminder that respect was the greatest wealth anyone could offer, and that true luxury, after all, was in how we choose to see others. A few weeks had passed since Carla's experience at the luxury store in Velmor. The memory of the confrontation and the impact it had on each employee still lingered in her mind. The expressions of surprise on their faces, the genuine regret of some, and the promises for change made by the manager, all of it stayed with her as an indelible mark in her fight for dignity and respect. Carla knew that true transformation would take time and commitment, but she felt a genuine curiosity to see how things were developing. So, on a quiet afternoon, Carla decided to return to the store. As she crossed the glass doors, she sensed that the environment was familiar, but something had changed. When the employees noticed her entry, they straightened and exchanged brief glances of recognition, but this time there was no tension in their expressions. The atmosphere felt more welcoming, as though each person had absorbed the lesson and was prepared to act differently. Camila, who was rearranging some items in one of the display cases, noticed Carla, and immediately her face showed a mix of surprise and respect. She walked over to Carla with a humble posture and a look that reflected something deeper: gratitude and admiration. "Dr. Mendes, it's a pleasure to see you again," Camila said, her voice calm but full of sincerity. "I hope you're well. I believe that things are a bit different around here." Carla offered a slight smile and nodded. She had noticed the change in Camila's demeanor, a transformation evident in every gesture and in the respectful way she now addressed her. The young saleswoman, who had once looked at her with judgment and condescension, now displayed a sincerity that reflected true learning. "I can see that something has indeed changed, Camila," Carla replied, with a satisfied expression. "Tell me, how are things here? The service seems different." Camila took a deep breath, as though organizing her thoughts, and began to explain the changes she and her colleagues had adopted since Carla's visit. She shared how the team now underwent training focused on empathy and respect, with an emphasis on inclusive and welcoming service. She explained that the manager, with everyone's support, had implemented new guidelines to ensure that every customer was treated with the same consideration and respect, regardless of appearance or personal assumptions. "I think we all learned something important from you," Camila said, her voice carrying a mix of gratitude and remorse. "Before, we thought exclusivity meant treating only some clients with distinction. But now we understand that true value is in treating everyone with the same respect." Carla listened closely, sensing that each word reflected a genuine commitment to change. She knew that true transformation didn't happen overnight, but seeing that the team was dedicated to this new path brought her deep satisfaction. Camila, who had once treated her with indifference, now demonstrated authentic respect, showing the impact of the experience. As they spoke, the manager noticed Carla's presence and approached with a look of respect. He greeted her with a sincere smile and made himself available to assist with anything she might need. "Dr. Mendes, it's very good to see you again," the manager said, with a slight bow. "I want you to know that your words made us reflect deeply. Since your last visit, we are all committed to a new way of serving our clients." Carla kept her smile and nodded, appreciating the sincerity in the manager's words. There was something inspiring in that collective commitment, a determination that went beyond mere apologies. The experience she had sparked had been more than a confrontation. It was an opportunity for reflection and growth that everyone seemed to have embraced. "I'm glad to know that you're turning this moment into a learning experience," Carla replied in a firm but warm tone. "Respecting people is not just a matter of service, it's a matter of humanity. It's important to remember that everyone who enters this door deserves to be treated with the same consideration." The manager and Camila nodded, visibly touched by Carla's words. Her sincerity made them feel that every effort they had made in the past weeks had been worth it. In that moment, Carla felt she was standing before people who, despite their failures, had chosen to learn and transform, something she deeply valued. Carla then looked around and noticed other employees listening to the conversation attentively, as if they were waiting for a word from her, something to confirm that they were on the right path. Seeing this, Carla addressed them all with a warm expression and a voice that conveyed both firmness and understanding. I want everyone here to know that true luxury is not in the products we offer, but in how we choose to treat one another, she said warmly. We build the value of a place with respect and dignity. Those are the true foundations of an exclusive environment. Carla's words echoed through the room, and she saw the faces of the employees light up with a mix of pride and relief. Each of them seemed to absorb her message, feeling that this moment was a reaffirmation that the path they had chosen was indeed the truest one. Camila, in particular, seemed deeply moved. She approached Carla with a slight smile and, with a voice that was almost shy, said, "Dr. Mendes, I just want to thank you for everything you've done for us. I know my attitude was wrong, but I also know that I learned so much from the experience. I never want to treat anyone the way I treated you that day." Carla smiled, this time with a compassionate look. She knew that Camila's learning was real and that the young saleswoman was committed to sincere change. "I believe in second chances, Camila," Carla replied. "And I believe that everyone can learn from their mistakes, as long as they're willing to change." Camila nodded, visibly relieved and inspired, as if Carla's words were confirmation that she could indeed become a better person. For Camila, this was more than a professional lesson. It was a life lesson, an opportunity to see people beyond appearances and to treat everyone with the dignity they deserved. As Carla finished her visit, she looked at the manager and the employees around her, feeling proud of the impact her presence had left. She knew that from this moment on, each of them would carry with them a renewed sense of value, a genuine desire to offer respect and hospitality to every customer. And for Carla, that was the greatest victory she could have achieved. As she exited, Carla left the store with a light heart, knowing that in this place of luxury and exclusivity, there now existed a new understanding of the true value of humanity. It was a quiet yet profound change that would mark everyone there forever, reminding them that true greatness lies in how we choose to treat each other. After Carla's second visit to the store, Camila was left with a mix of relief and determination. She felt deeply grateful that Carla had given her a second chance, yet she knew that this experience was only the beginning of a much deeper personal journey. Carla's presence had awakened a painful awareness in her, a realization of her own prejudices, the judgments and assumptions she'd carried for years that shaped how she viewed people. As she organized the store in the late afternoon, Camila found herself reflecting on the values she had internalized over the years. For so long, she thought that her role as a saleswoman in a luxury store required a certain standard of service. She had been taught to prioritize clients who visibly displayed wealth, as though respect was something only to be given to those who deserved it according to the store's environment. But as she confronted the reality of her own behavior, Camila realized just how wrong she'd been. The regret she felt was intense, and she knew it would take time to completely forgive herself. However, Carla had given her an invaluable gift, the opportunity to reflect and change. She vividly remembered Carla's words, how she had made it clear that a person's true value should never be judged by appearance, and that respect wasn't a choice but a right for everyone. In an attempt to understand her own motivations more deeply, Camila began to recall episodes from her own life, moments when she herself had been treated with disdain or underestimated. She remembered how, in her first job, she had often felt judged and had to prove her worth daily. Though she had never faced direct prejudice like Carla had, Camila realized that she, too, had been influenced by a system of values that tended to judge and categorize people. These memories brought a painful but necessary awareness. Camila understood that by judging others, she was perpetuating the very mentality that had once made her uncomfortable. Now, she recognized that she needed to dismantle these prejudices within herself, questioning each judgment, each assumption. More than that, she was determined to create a more welcoming environment in the store, where everyone could feel valued. The weeks following Carla's second visit were a time of intense transformation for Camila. She had committed herself to the new training the store provided, but she knew that the most important learning wouldn't come from a manual or lecture. It was an exercise in self-awareness and empathy, an internal process of change that would require, above all, patience and honesty with herself. Camila began to approach customers with genuine smiles and the same level of respect. She tried to see beyond clothing, behavior, or appearances, striving to view each customer as a unique person with a story and undeniable worth. This new outlook made her realize how often people came to the store not only to buy but to feel recognized and valued. Each interaction became, for her, an opportunity to practice respect and empathy, a constant exercise in seeing others without judgment. Camila's transformation did not go unnoticed by her colleagues, who began to admire her commitment to change. Some were even inspired by her new approach and started to rethink their own attitudes, creating a ripple effect of collective growth. The store's environment, once marked by selective exclusivity, was slowly becoming a place where all customers were treated with the same respect and consideration. On one of these reflective days, Camila remembered a phrase Carla had said during her last visit. "True luxury is in how we choose to treat others." These words became a mantra for Camila, a constant reminder that people's worth went beyond what she could see and that her role was to recognize this truth and put it into practice. She recalled Carla's firm gaze and how that woman had faced prejudice without hesitation, without backing down. To Camila, Carla was more than an important client. She was a model of dignity, someone who showed her that true strength wasn't in financial power but in the ability to stand firm in the face of adversity. One afternoon, while assisting an elderly woman with a simple accessory purchase, Camila noticed the surprise and gratitude in the customer's face for the kind, respectful service she had received. The woman said with a shy smile, "You're a very polite and kind saleswoman. It's rare to find service like this nowadays." Those words touched Camila deeply, for she knew that, before her experience with Carla, she might have treated this client differently. Now, however, her work had a new purpose, a new reason for being. She wanted everyone, without exception, to leave the store feeling respected and seen as people of worth. In the days that followed, Camila continued her commitment to inclusive service and to her daily practice of empathy. Although moments of automatic judgment still arose in her mind, she had learned to silence those voices and challenge her own biases. For her, each customer was a new opportunity to practice Carla's lesson, to choose respect and dignity as unwavering principles. At the end of another workday, as she prepared the store for the next shift, Camila felt a sense of peace and fulfillment. She knew that her growth journey was still long, but she was proud of every small victory she achieved. Carla had changed her life, and she now understood that this change was a responsibility she would carry with her every day. To Camila, the value of the store's jewelry and accessories had taken on a new meaning. She no longer saw these items merely as luxury products but as symbols of something deeper, something that reflected the beauty of respect and dignity that everyone deserves. In that moment, she felt grateful to have met someone like Carla, a woman whose transformative presence had left an indelible mark on her life and in her heart. After Carla's second visit to the store and witnessing the visible changes in the employees, especially in Camila, she felt deeply satisfied. The experiences of prejudice and judgment she had faced there, although painful, had become an opportunity for genuine transformation. She knew that her firm stance had been the turning point, but she also recognized that the employees' commitment to change had been essential for that environment to become a more inclusive and respectful place. Yet, even in light of these changes, Carla found herself in a dilemma. Friends and colleagues with whom she had shared her experience encouraged her to take formal action against the store, suggesting she file a complaint or even make the incident public. But Carla, while understanding their desire for justice, felt something inside her urging her to take a different path. Sitting in her office, reflecting on everything that had happened, Carla pondered the impact of her decision. She was a woman used to facing challenges with determination, but she had also learned throughout her life the importance of forgiveness and belief in people's potential to change. She knew that everyone had a story, a journey that shaped their beliefs and attitudes. Deep down, she believed that when confronted with the truth, many were capable of learning and transforming. The image of Camila came to mind, the young saleswoman who had initially treated her with indifference and prejudice, but who, after Carla's visit, seemed to have found a new purpose and a genuine desire to make amends. Carla recalled Camila's words during her second visit, how the young woman had expressed her gratitude and promised to treat every customer with dignity from that day forward. That promise felt real, a sincere commitment Camila had made as a way to honor the lessons the experience had taught her. Carla knew that taking punitive action against the store or exposing the situation publicly could have repercussions that might destabilize the new transformation process. She wanted to believe that the changes she had witnessed were more than superficial, that each employee was truly committed to building a place where respect was non-negotiable. She trusted in the power of transformation, something she had learned to value deeply over her career. As she reflected, Carla remembered other occasions when she had chosen understanding over punishment in similar situations. She knew that many considered her approach a weakness, but to her, forgiving and trusting in people's capacity for change was one of the greatest signs of strength. Her own life story was filled with moments when she had been underestimated, yet in each of those moments, she chose to act with compassion, showing that respect for others was her most solid principle. Resolved, Carla took a deep breath and smiled to herself. She would choose not to take any action against the store. She knew her impact had been profound and that the example she left behind would serve as a lasting reminder for the employees. Rather than punishing them, Carla preferred to follow the transformation closely, keeping in contact with Mr. Ramos and the team to ensure that the commitment they had made was upheld. In her heart, Carla felt that her act of compassion would be the greatest lesson she could leave. By choosing forgiveness and trust, she was teaching something even more powerful than any formal action, that true change begins with a sincere desire to see others grow, to believe that even in their mistakes, people can learn and evolve. A few days later, Carla received a call from Mr. Ramos. The executive, who knew her well, wanted to thank her personally for the opportunity she had given the store's team and the company as a whole. He knew that Carla could have easily chosen a path of punishment but was profoundly grateful that she had opted for a different approach. "Dr. Mendes, I want you to know how much we appreciate your understanding and generosity," Mr. Ramos said respectfully. "Your stance has taught us far more than any sanction could have. Each of us has learned to value respect and dignity in a way we will never forget." Carla thanked him with a serene smile. She knew her position had left a mark, but more importantly, she felt at peace with herself. She knew she had made the right choice and that by trusting in change, she was investing in something far more lasting and valuable. "Mr. Ramos, I'm glad you all understood what truly matters," Carla replied in a firm yet gentle voice. "I know it's not easy to confront our own biases, but I believe you're on the right path. Respect and dignity must be the foundation of any human interaction, and that is what I choose to believe in." The conversation with Mr. Ramos reinforced Carla's certainty that her gesture had been fully understood. More than a lesson in customer service, she had offered the store's team a new perspective, a new way to see others, free from judgments, free from labels, but with the certainty that each person has unique, invaluable worth. Carla knew she might never see the full extent of her actions' impact, but it didn't matter. For her, the simple act of having planted that seed of change was reason enough to feel fulfilled. She believed that even though the world was still imperfect, each act of respect and dignity contributed to making it a slightly better place. With a calm heart and a peaceful mind, Carla decided she would move forward, but she would always keep a close eye on the journey of those who had once underestimated her. She knew that true transformation required dedication and constant effort, and she was willing to accompany those who had made this commitment to her. As she hung up the phone, Carla looked out the window of her office and felt a gentle breeze that brought her a sense of renewal. She knew that her choice to forgive and trust was a testament to her own resilience and her belief in humanity's capacity to change. And for her, that was the greatest victory she could have achieved. After Carla's decision to trust in the store's potential for change, the environment there was never the same. Under Mr. Ramos's guidance, the employees began participating in a series of training sessions and awareness activities. The goal was clear: to transform the store into a space where respect and empathy were fundamental and unquestionable values. The incident with Carla had been a turning point, and everyone, from management to sales associates, embraced the responsibility to honor the commitment they had made to her. The transformation started with small adjustments in customer service, but it soon extended to deeper practices, challenging everyone to rethink their attitudes and the way they saw others. Led by the manager, the team gathered to discuss what they referred to as a new philosophy of service, And Carla's words served as the primary inspiration for this shift. Every phrase she had spoken during their encounter became a kind of silent guide, reminding them of what truly mattered, treating everyone with dignity, regardless of appearances or assumptions. Camila, who had become one of the main advocates for change, made a point to incorporate this new understanding into her daily routine. She was the first to greet clients with a genuine smile and a welcoming attitude, showing kindness to every person who walked through the door. She realized that by treating each customer with respect, she was honoring the lesson Carla had taught her, while also making her work more meaningful. For Camila, customer service was no longer just a professional obligation but a way to honor human value, something she found more rewarding than any commission or goal. One of the new training initiatives included the practice of active listening, encouraging employees to listen to each customer attentively and patiently, striving to understand their needs without rushing or judgment. This practice transformed the workplace, creating an atmosphere of calm and warmth that many clients began to notice. Previously, the focus had been on serving quickly and ensuring that only the best clients felt special. Now, everyone who entered the store was treated as someone special, and this approach began to generate positive and unexpected responses. Gradually, the store started attracting a different clientele, people who felt comfortable in this new environment. Many customers returned, not only for the products but for the welcoming service and the sense of belonging they found there. For the employees, it was surprising to see how the shift in customer service impacted not only the clients but also transformed the internal culture of the store. The team began to feel closer, more united in a common purpose, and the job, once exhausting, became an experience of growth and collaboration. Camila, in particular, had become an example to her colleagues. Her personal transformation was visible and inspiring, and many employees sought her guidance on how to serve customers with empathy and without judgment. Once competitive and focused on herself, Camila now spent part of her time helping her colleagues adopt this new mindset. She not only shared what she had learned but demonstrated through her own example how it was possible to see the value in each person and offer service that reflected that belief. One day, while helping a new employee understand the importance of respect in customer service, Camila shared one of Carla's teachings that had touched her deeply. Respect isn't a matter of choice, it's a commitment to the worth of every human being. Carla's words had become a constant reference for everyone at the store, and each employee tried to incorporate them into their daily work. By adopting this new philosophy, they realized that service wasn't just a task, it was an opportunity to make a positive impact, to leave a mark on people. Instead of a mechanical and impersonal routine, working at the store had become a mission to humanize and value others. One of the most remarkable impacts of this change was the customer's response. Many people who had previously felt uncomfortable or out of place in the luxury environment now entered and were greeted with a genuine smile and respectful approach. Clients who, in the past, might have been overlooked now received full attention, creating a genuine and profound connection. Many shared personal stories, talked about their lives and the reasons for their visit, turning each interaction into a moment of exchange and learning. For Camila and the other employees, these moments were especially meaningful. They realized that by adopting an empathetic and respectful approach, they got to know customers and their stories better, giving them a new appreciation for the work they were doing. Previously, the focus had been only on products, sales, and targets. Now, the focus was on experience and the quality of relationships they built with each person they served. Moreover, the team began to notice that their commitment to respect and empathy brought not only an emotional impact but also benefits to the store's performance. Customers felt more valued, recommended the service to friends and family, which resulted in increased visits and sales. It was as if the choice to treat people with dignity came with its own natural reward, something everyone there came to value more than any financial incentive. Over the months, the store established itself as an example of humanized and inclusive service. The transformation was so profound that many employees began sharing the experience with family and friends, inspiring them to adopt the same principles of respect and empathy in their own lives. It was as if the seed Carla had planted had generated a series of positive changes that went beyond the store's walls, influencing everyone who had come into contact with that environment. For Camila, The experience with Carla had become a personal milestone. She now saw every customer as someone deserving of her best service and made a point of passing this lesson on to her colleagues. She knew that the learning Carla had provided was something she would carry with her forever, something that had transformed her worldview and was now a part of who she was. As she organized the final details at the end of another workday, Camila felt a sense of pride and gratitude. She knew that, without Carla's courage to stand up for herself, she might never have recognized her own prejudices and never undergone this transformation. For her, Carla's presence had been a watershed moment, an opportunity to become a better, more empathetic person, more attuned to the value of each individual. Now, the luxury environment of the store was no longer marked by superficial exclusivity but by a genuine commitment to respect and dignity. The team had learned that true value lay in people, and that every act of empathy and respect contributed to building a space where everyone, regardless of appearance or status, could feel welcome and valued. Months later, Carla decided to visit the store again. She didn't have any specific purchase in mind, but she felt a natural curiosity to observe how the team and environment had evolved since her last visit. The intense experience she had endured there had left a mark not only on the employees but on herself, and she wanted to see up close the result of that transformation. As she walked through the door, Carla was immediately welcomed by a warm atmosphere that conveyed respect and empathy. The staff recognized her and greeted her with genuine smiles. A simple gesture, yet one that carried a depth she could feel instantly. In that space where she had once been treated with indifference, she now felt genuinely welcome. Camila, who was near the entrance, was the first to spot her. Upon seeing Carla, her face lit up, and she walked over with a demeanor that conveyed not only joy but also profound respect. "Dr. Mendes, it's a pleasure to see you again," Camila said warmly. "I hope you've noticed a few changes around here. We're working to honor everything we learned from you." Carla smiled and nodded, looking around and observing the employees, who attended to other customers with the same kindness and attentiveness. She felt moved to see that her presence had sparked genuine transformation and that everyone in the space seemed committed to building something better. "I'm truly impressed, Camila," Carla replied, her voice filled with satisfaction and pride. "You've managed to create an environment where everyone feels valued. That is something very special and exactly what I hoped to see." Noticing Carla's presence, the manager approached as well, his expression one of respect and gratitude, as if he wished to make it clear how significant her influence had been for him and the entire team. "Dr. Mendes, thank you once again for everything," he said sincerely. "Your words and example taught us the true value of respect. We've made it a priority to ensure that everyone here, both employees and customers, is treated with the dignity they deserve." Carla smiled, responding with an understanding look. "I'm glad you all understood the importance of this," she said gently. "I know it's not always easy, but I believe respect is worth every effort. You're on the right path, and I'm proud to see it." As she continued her visit, Carla observed the care with which each employee treated the customers, taking the time to listen attentively, to welcome them with patience, and to respond sincerely. To her, this transformed environment was proof that, with genuine commitment, it was possible to overcome prejudice and build a culture of respect and empathy. Camila accompanied her through the store, showing her some of the new items, and in between conversations, she shared with Carla how much the experience had changed her life. Camila spoke with a sincerity that touched Carla deeply, and it was clear that the young saleswoman had found new purpose, a new way to see and value the world. "Dr. Mendes, I want you to know that since that experience, not a day has gone by that I haven't reflected on what I learned from you," Camila said, her eyes shining with emotion. "I used to see customer service as just an obligation, but now I see it as an opportunity to create a positive impact. Every customer I serve is a new chance to practice respect and empathy." Carla smiled, feeling deeply moved by Camila's words. She knew that, for the young saleswoman, the transformation had been both professional and personal, something she would carry with her for life. "I'm so happy to hear that, Camila," Carla replied, her tone filled with pride. "Remember, true value doesn't lie in appearances or judgments, but in how we choose to treat others. And I can see that you've understood this in a very special way." Camila nodded, her smile filled with emotion, feeling fulfilled and inspired. For her, every moment in the store, every customer she attended to, was an opportunity to honor the lessons Carla had taught her and to put the value of respect into practice. As they said goodbye, Carla felt that her mission there was complete. She knew that the impact she had made would be long-lasting, and that from now on, everyone in that store would carry a lesson about the value of human dignity. The transformed environment, the empathy visible in each interaction, and the genuine respect the employees showed were proof that, even in a world marked by judgments and prejudice, it was possible to build something different. As she walked toward the exit, Carla turned to take one last look at the space. She smiled, feeling fulfilled. She knew that, while transformation was a continuous process, this was an example that change was possible, and that true greatness lies in the ability to see others with respect and compassion. And so, with a light heart and a sense of peace, Carla left the store, knowing that her impact there had become a seed of transformation for everyone who had witnessed and learned from her presence. If you love stories that touch the heart and surprise you with every chapter, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Here, we're dedicated to bringing you new content every day, pouring passion into each story we create. Every subscription makes a huge difference and helps us continue bringing more chapters from the city of Velmor. So, if you'd like to support us and keep these stories coming, hit that subscribe button and join this adventure. Thank you for being part of our community, and we'll see you in the next video.